Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, July 28th, and it is going to be another glorious day. And as you can see from my fogged up windows, they're all fogged up from the outside. It is warm and muggy. We're in definitely a rainy pattern. Mobile normally gets about 66 inches of rain a year. And last I saw, we were about 55, 56 inches for this year. So we've had rain, rain, and more rain. Rain is a blessing, but it's time to bless someone else with it. So I haven't been doing a lot of gardening this week, so we'll just go and see what has happened on its own without any input from me. All we really did was trim and edge all of the grass. In here, everything is pretty much doing the same. You can see how sloppy the begonia is. However, it is beautiful. That's torch begonia. And you can see my rabbit's foot fern is developing a little rabbit's foot on the side there. That's how it got its name. Other than that, everything else looks about the same in here. My little begonia is doing well in the corner, as are my coleus. I have noticed in the heat, that happens every year, but it's happening to me now more this last couple of weeks, that normally I water just once a week out here, but when it gets really hot outside, I have to water 2 to maybe even 3 times a week to keep everything happy. Oh, there goes my clock. That tells you approximately what time it is. That's an old clock from the 1840s or 1850s, and unfortunately it's an hour fast. I need to adjust it. It's an old clock, old like me. It runs when you have to wind it every 2 days. And for the first day it runs fast, and the second day it runs slow. I am doused all over with mosquito repellent. That's the one thing that's really doing well in all of this rain. My potager, everything seems to be growing. The ginger back in there is coming in nicely. My green onions, I've about had it. Oh, the bees are working over something over here. I see I have some cucumber flowers. I do need to get them off of my basil. Tomatoes aren't doing well because of the rains we're getting every day. But I have no trouble with planting things. Anything you plant does really well. This has done really well this year. That is that artificial sweetener. Stevia. Couldn't quite remember the name. My potato vine is doing fine on the fence. The one in the backyard has unfortunately some beetles on it, and only one batch of string beans seems to be doing okay. So I may be getting rid of the string beans from the front. You can see my neighbor has removed the dumpster. It just moved it to a side of the house. They should be finished with construction pretty soon, but it looks a lot more open. The nandinas that I cut back are sprouting up nicely. Before we go too far over here, let's start in the corner. I do need to trim up my agave. It's starting to look a little the worse for wear. Top dress it and fertilize it some more. My bananas really like it. This is the kind of weather bananas excel in. And way in the back, I don't know where it is. There is a ginger lily in bloom. So the ginger lily, the rains broke that one. I don't have gutters on the house, so the rains fall to the ground. And if it's really strong, it can snap things. My poor fig has gotten floppy. I've tried tying it up, but it just got a little too floppy. I'll have to stake it and tie some of the upper branches. It just grew so much. Well, we've been getting some semi-strong winds with the pounding rain. So that's why it's a little the worse for wear. I see a little anole working his way up the cassia there. Cassia is doing well. It is now 6 foot tall. And it's branching out nicely. These caladiums are doing fine. And the crepe myrtle is finally rising above the aspidistra quite nicely. That's about, I want to say, 4 or 5 years there. There used to be a loquat tree in its spot, and it just up and died. It died the year before construction started on the street. You can see here that the encore azaleas really love it back here. All the extra water is causing everything to grow nicely, kind of uniformly, which is good. I need to nip and tuck a little bit here and there, but overall it's still, everything is holding its form here, which is good. My bearded iris did not bloom. Sometimes they bloom in the fall. The one I got this year is getting shaded out from the with the spiderwort. Yeah, here you can see how badly this branch has folded down. I'll stake it up and see if it's will withstand, or stand up again, I should say. I'm not holding, I've had figs before, and many times if we get a hard frost, it'll knock them back. So I don't plan on doing any trimming of that fig. I'll just brace it so that it stands upward, or stake it so it stands upward. And any trimming, I'll wait until we'll see what the winter kills on it. We were marginally hardy for figs. But now, since we are a Zone 9A, we may be totally hardy. Who knows? I do see another Datura bloom. This is taking, the rain, everyday rain, is taking a toll on my Mediterranean herbs over here. But I see another flower on my Datura is blooming. These are double. It's like a trumpet within a trumpet. It's not that pretty, that's why I didn't show you the inside. It's an older flower, so it's kind of yellowish. And here you can see the rains have really beat down this Satsuma. But so far, it's doing fine. If anything, it's screening the ivies more. I do need to get rid of these little bits of weed coming through. Whew. That was wet. And as you can see here, the angel's trumpet has pretty much recovered. You'd never know that all the leaves fell off of that a few weeks ago. And unfortunately back here, the lily beetles have arrived. How can I tell? Look at the leaves on the potato vine. There is one now. I need to go ahead and spray this potato vine. It was doing fine until it got up to the top of the fence, and then they immediately got all over the top of this one and ate it. And I need to dust it with powder. 7 does work on that. But the problem with the lily beetles is they're kind of hard. You got to really spray on them. So this, I don't know if that's really what they are. I call them lily beetles because they look like something similar that used to eat my lilies. But they will devastate this potato vine. The good news is they kind of leave everything else alone. The potato vine is about the only thing they tend to hit. That's one of the reasons I took the potato vine down from the front on the picket fence, because it was being eaten by the beetles, and so I let it go a couple of years without a potato vine. So I may have to do the same thing here, cut these down and not let them come back for a couple of years, and we'll see what happens. Cleomes are starting to look a little the worse for wear. Maybe I could fertilize them. This iochroma has not sent out a single blossom yet. I do remain hopeful. Here you can really tell what the rains have done. They've really knocked down the satsuma tree. I'm going to have to take another round of fruit off because it's really bending down quite far. And here you can see someone turned over my turtle's bowl. Gado. I'll put some more water in it a little later. Do have a new cat. Oscar has temporarily gone missing, and a new cat has appeared. He is, I don't know if it's a he or a she. I haven't been able to get that close yet. It is a Scottish Fold, I believe is the name of the cat. It's a very big cat, made bigger by the fact that it's fluffy, and it has black fur, great big oval head, and its ears are folded down in the front. Both ears are folded down. An unusual looking cat. So far he just eats food. He hasn't come to me or anything like that, but I do put food out for him and he eats it. Oscar comes every few days. Hasn't been around recently. These aren't doing real well because of the constant rain. I did have to go around and take pots off of trays, saucers, because the saucers are staying full of water at all times, and some plants like it and some plants don't. These bananas have taken off. We'll probably lose this first banana this week because it is getting tangled up in my crepe myrtle way too much. And we have our first blooms on the toad lily, which is pretty. There's another one over here, another 2 over here. They seem to like that spot. And my crinum is blooming over here. I did notice that this crinum has a little more tinge of pink to it. You can see on the new blossoms. It was supposed to have been red, so maybe there is some red in it. We'll see. Here I smell the citrusy smell of the ripe pindo palm fruit. And you can see it is on the ground. And the bees and gnats are eating them. They have pretty much all fallen off the tree. And they've gotten entangled in the trunk of the tree. I did have a friend, well, I do have a friend, that needed to go to a doctor appointment that I took him to this week. And fortunately, while he was in the doctor's office, I was walking around outside, and it is in downtown Mobile, and they had a lot of this Spanish moss hanging from the trees, and a lot of it was on the grass. So I went ahead and picked me up a whole bag full of Spanish moss, and I refreshed the trunk of this tree. Some of it had lived from last year, It was not originally on this tree. And I did notice I covered the whole trunk last year, and it seemed to only do well on this front side. And so that's what I did, is I put more on the front side. So we shall see. It helps cover up the trunk. The trunk of the Pindo palm, depending on how you cut it, isn't necessarily pretty, especially when it gets to be this size. And it really is in your face when you plant it like I did. So I try to disguise it as best I can. That fern on the top is the volunteer. It is the same type of fern that I have elsewhere in the yard. How it got up there, I don't know. I want to say it's a southern shield fern. It's a nice fern, but they're very fragile. If you touch them, they break. If you look at them too hard, they break. Unlike this fern, you can do whatever you want to, and it's not very easy to break it up. Coleus still doing well in the corner. Oh, while we're here, let's take a look at how the angel's trumpets are doing. Let me move this to the side. Here's the white cutting that I took earlier this year, and it sprouted. And the pink one that I stuck in the ground a couple of weeks ago, of course with these daily rains, I kind of figured it would catch. But you can see it's got all kinds of sprouts up and down the stalk. So it definitely caught. And I look forward to seeing blossoms on it pretty soon. David is getting smothered by the Fatsia japonica. I don't see any flowering buds yet coming out on it. This typically does set bud and blooms, so we'll see. One good thing about all this rain is it is definitely washing the fertilizer into the roots of the palms, because I had just fertilized the palms a few weeks ago. And this palm, the Canary Island date palm, Phoenix canariensis, has got a nice top on it. That's getting to the point where it's about its normal length. So it looks like it is recovering. Every now and then a branch will snap off because of the winds. But hopefully it will recover from this last winter. And because I have to fertilize so heavily my palms, anything you plant around them, the aspidistra tends to burn. But things like this, the ginger lilies, they relish that extra fertilizer. Of course, the palms do suck the moisture out of the soil, so you do have to keep them watered. I don't right now because of all the rains. Back in here, I don't really see a lot going on. This nut tree, pecan, isn't growing as fast as it did last year, but it is growing still. And the birds keep breaking the branches, landing on it, but it keeps sending out more, so never lose hope when a tree you own is damaged at the top, because Mother Nature will take care of it. Let's see, now you can see the pink angel's trumpet has grown to the point where I have to be careful you don't see the sunlight, you don't get the sun reflection here. It is as tall, back in there, as my pecan. So it definitely likes that spot. And it should be blooming pretty soon. I'm trying to see if I see any buds on it yet. I don't see any yet, but they will come. Oh, bottle brush. It's sending out a whole bunch of new flowers. See if I can get closer. Yes. That's about its second flush of flowers along the bottom there. They are a unique flower. Back in there. All is looking well. It's a little too dark, I think, for the caladiums. And I have to admit, I will never, as God is my witness, I will never pot caladium bulbs up again. I will wait till it's warm enough and plant them directly in the ground, because those are white Christmas caladiums and they are a disappointment, I have to admit. They were potted up well in advance of all the other caladiums, but because of it being cold, they didn't do anything in pots. So there was no advantage to potting them up early if you don't put bottom heat on them. And in addition, they look kind of stunted compared to the ones I planted directly in the ground. These are ones I planted directly in the ground, skipping the potting up stage. So I must admit it wasn't worth the effort. So I have learned my lesson. Of course, I tell you that now, but I will probably still try again. I can hear this angel's trumpet. The white one is doing fine. You see here, oh, that's a pod, good. I was going to say, I see the holes, that's the horse lubber eats those, but it's an old pod, so that's fine. As is this, it's not a flower. If they start eating flowers, I absolutely hate that, but there's nothing you can do. They're at least eating the spent pods. And I guess that's going to be about it for the day. Oh, I do see some angel's trumpets blooming. They were up overhead and the sun was in the way. I couldn't see them. But hopefully I can get a shot of them up here. They're just starting to open. They do smell best in the evening when they open. That's when the scent comes out of them. And my shrimp plant seems to be doing well. It's got a lot of green and it does have more buds. So I may have found the spot for the shrimp plant. It certainly is no longer wilting every day. Of course, that's because of the rains. And my Ozark plum has filled out nicely. That's this tree over here. All my fruit trees around this statue are doing well. You can see the fruit on the satsuma in the middle. And there's fruit on the kumquats to the left. And of course, this is where I had a Meyer lemon years ago, but I put an Ozark plum. And at least now it has balanced my kumquat. So I'll try to keep the plum at that height, and hopefully next year I'll get some fruit. For some reason, this strawberry pot just catastrophically died. I'm assuming it must be too much water. That one seems to be doing fine. But for some reason, this one just catastrophically died. I do see there's a lot of dirt missing from the top, so maybe I'll top it off with some fresh soil and it may help things along some. Oh my goodness! Anna the banana spider is back. And she's got a big web. I don't know, hopefully you can see her up there with the sun glistening on her. That's a good spot for her because I will never walk in that area. They're only around for a couple of weeks, so enjoy them while you can. Oh, I see something beckoning me from across the yard. I was so intent on looking at the satsumas that I forgot to see the beautiful bougainvillea is in bloom again. It pops into bloom every now and then, about 2 or 3 times a year. The one on this side, they're both healthy, but for some reason they get, depending on the amount of sun they get, it determines when they're going to bloom again. So for now, enjoy the little pop of color. Vincas are still, they put up with the wet fine. I don't know if you all have any problems, but the birds really do seem to like to eat my sedum. There was a big wad of sedum like that, and the birds ate it. I see I have to change the water in my baptismal font. At least that's what it was when I bought it. But you can see some animal has been bathing in it and washing its food there. I know there are animals here at night, but so far they haven't done any damage to anything, so it's acceptable. Here everything is looking good. Everything is wet. You can still see the blooms on my hosta. They seem to be a little late this year. And my cardboard palm looks like it's snapping too. It's doing well. The cuttings of my rose geranium are still green. Hopefully they'll take. And the one thing that's done really well this year, of course I bought it new, is this papyrus. It is, well, in the pot, of course, but I am 6 foot tall, and it's as tall as I am. My pitcher plant, the Nepenthes, is doing well. I got a lot of pitchers. I think I showed you where it had wrapped around the chain at the top. That's how it grabs onto things. The pitchers will wrap around things before the tendrils will wrap around things before the pitchers form. I'm careful not to let them wrap around down there, because if I have to take it in from a frost, I'll have to sacrifice that one pitcher. But that's many moons away right now. The other thing that's doing really well is my sun patiens. It likes this wet weather. It has about doubled in height. Oh, I didn't get up fast enough. There was a squawky bird on top of the fence. You can see my neighbor's porch has been painted. It's just about done. There's some work going on inside the house yet. And here, my bat-faced kufiyas are still doing fine. I do have to look with the animals coming back here, i.e. cats now. They tend to bonk into these pots. Which, speaking of that, I was watching some gardening shows, and in England especially, they have a lot of gardeners that like to put pots laying on their sides, just sort of scattered about the yard. And I thought, that's such a good idea. Not for me. I bought those pots just to do that, just to lay on their side. And every time I look at those, the first thought in my mind is, those darn cats are at it again. So some people can have pots laying around. I think I'm going to put something in those. Roses are looking a little the worse for wear because of the constant dampness. They're starting to get some fungal diseases. But once when the heat kicks in, they will recover. The heat will eventually kick in. We can still have a drought in the month of August. You never can tell. Here the loropetalum is doing really well. You can see another flush of flowers. I want to say this is about the third flush this year on these plants. They bloomed first like way back in December, January, and then again like in, I want to say April or May, and now they're coming back again. How about on this side? On this side, not as much, probably because I've been pruning this one down. They do take well to being in pots. This one, where's my finger? This one has been in this pot for about 5 to 7 years. And that one has been in that pot for over 10 years. And what I do, I just keep them at a certain size and top dress the pot, and I put slow release, the granular fertilizer, what's it called? Osmocote, I think is what it's called. The beads, and I put them in once a year. But for some reason, that one is a little more in the sun. Well, not for some reason, it is in the sun. And because of that, it tends to dry out a little more. And if you're not on top of things, you can kill a loropetalum from letting it dry out too much for too long. And hence this one is older. But back to the story. They do very well in pots. And if you have them in the sun, of course, they'll be purple. It's a nice pop of color. And they are evergreen. So I highly recommend them for the south. You can see here my white crepe myrtle looks like snow on top of the windmill palm. I'm getting a second flush of flowers at the top. Fortunately, they're not as heavy as the first flush. You can see the little honeybees are all up there working the flowers. But it kind of looks like snow when it falls down on the leaves. But that is about it for the day. I hope you all get to go out and enjoy your gardens. I'm going to go in now and shower because I am soaking wet. But that is part of living in a zone 9A. It's hot in the summer and warm in the winter. So I'll see you next week. Take care for now.